To the ever-persistent peoples of our modern era, we have gathered here today some documents which concern the opening battles of the Second Hiklaxian-Lepritan War of Control, with several sections of the front line having had been forced to fall back from the Lepritan perspective. The Lepritans also encountered the fearsome Hiklaxian navy, which forced one of the most powerful defeats in the beginning of the war. The Battle of Auroran's Point, as it was named, was fought on the 13th of February, 1805. This battle only had 2,000 casualties combined, with the Hiklaxians using the first of their famed military stratagems to win the battle. Being fought by a colonel on the Hiklaxian side and a junior lieutenant by the Lepritans, the battle was almost so one-sided by the tactics alone that the outnumbered environment the Hiklax placed itself in dealt it the advantage, being able to outmaneuver the Lepritans and cause them to retreat. Another case of Hiklaxian advantage over the Lepritan front-line troops was at the Battle of the Forest of Ice, where 3,000 men lost their lives in the largest stalemate battle that Hiklax had encountered, dwarfing even those from the days of the Democratic Revolution, with the Lepritans digging in while the Hiklaxians sent cavalry to try flush them out quickly. This tactical blunder, it seemed, caused that section of the front line to stall out for months. However, the largest victory for the Hiklaxians during the opening months of the war was at the Battle of Petrov's Bay, where the Chilavir fleet had delivered a crippling blow to the Lepritans' navy, while suffering only paint scratches in return. From what we'll describe as raiders, cruisers, and battleships, the Chilavir was made up of a substantial mixture of the three, with a certain fraction of raiders to cruisers to battleships. The Lepritans' fleet, however, had a larger threshold of battleships and lacked any cruisers in return, allowing the Hiklaxians to destroy the Lepritan fleet with ease, causing the destruction of at least 4 Lepritan raiders while retreating, causing the deaths of over 300 Lepritan sailors and crewmen alike. The only Hiklaxian death during the battle was rumored to be a random slave who was worked to death below deck of the lead battleship. During this stage of the conflict, however, another pressing concern to the realms of Hiklax and Wilhelmsia had arisen: the assassination of the Wilhelmsian Field Marshal of Zachariah Felming on the 21st of February, and being investigated by the Hiklaxians a month later on the 23rd of March, 1805. This assassination occurred within Hiklaxia as the Field Marshal was visiting as part of the Wilhelmsian observers sent to the conflict as part of the invasion into Leprit to make sure that the war crimes weren't occurring to an alarming degree. Assassinated during the dead of night, the Hiklaxians who were meant to guard him in his chambers were immediately arrested and questioned by the Imperial Intelligence Agency, with his room being turned inside out for any clues on the forgotten assassin who killed Zachariah Felming. The first of several clues was from the body itself, being laid out in the same way that Prime Minister Hersted was assassinated in his cell back in 1771, with a letter in his lap and his throat being slit, but crucially this time, almost being beheaded, unlike their last assassination. This crucial detail pointed the Hiklaxian Empire towards the suspect being a non-human due to the supposed savagery to the corpse. This lead, no matter how racist or accurate it appeared to be on the surface, was apparently correct, as they were able to grasp hold of the location of the assassin to the night before the assassination, having had learnt that the assassin was in a run-down section of local township nearby to the main military base coordinating the initial invasion efforts into Leprit. However, the clues led into Leprit itself, and became a matter for the Hiklaxian Bureau of External Investigations, which meant that the Wilhelmsian Commonwealth would be gaining far less frequent updates on the investigation, especially due to Wilhelmsia's special interests in Leprit and likely unwillingness to cooperate with a Hiklaxian spy agency. On to more concrete details, however. We've been able to unearth an amount of letters from the Hiklaxian Emperor and the Woolworthian one in the March of 1805. Their conversation chain had started when the Woolworthian Emperor had asked if the Hiklaxian one would want support from Woolworth to handle the rebels. However, the Hiklaxian emperor replied with what we view as resistant tones and a large subsistence on the suspicion of the Woolworthians from Hiklaxian culture. Making the Hiklaxian Empire look laughably liberal by comparison, relations eventually broke down as the Hiklaxian Emperor had sent 2 open letters to the Woolworthian Emperor about the topic of ending slavery of Woolworth, akin to how Hiklax was doing it. The Woolworthian Emperor, in response, however, had replied with such indisposition that we surmise that the Hiklaxian Emperor had viewed the Woolworthians as a large threat and incredulously disliked the private reply, stating in their second of the public letters for the Woolworthian Emperor that every singular Jindo will die before you see terms with Hiklax, marking the official conclusion to any and all Hiklaxian Woolworthian diplomacy for their future. Adding coal gas onto this proverbial wood fire was the Hiklaxian Empire's announcement to the international community at the invitation of the Merchant Republic of Leprit into the Hiklaxian-Valturan Trade Treaty, and the renaming of it to NATO, or the Northern Auroran Prosperity Organization, creating yet another step to how Hiklax was slowly phasing out the slavery of the Empire and seeking to create everlasting bonds with its neighbors. Bonds which the Wilhelmsians had seen growing while looking at the Hiklaxian Empire with larger and larger amounts of suspicion. The Hiklaxian Empire, for its part at least, started to further seek the capitulation of the Lepritan armed forces through the continuation of the conflict and the shelling of the Lepritan coastline with naval cannons. Over the course of 2 months, the Lepritan 3rd Infantry Division was shelled and suffered a total of 1/3 casualties if the Hiklaxian reports and devastation in the area are to be believed. Among those dead was supposedly the junior general of the Lepritan 3rd Infantry Division, the Tapaxi male adorned with the Lepritan Revolutionary Council sigil, and supposedly only having their torso being the only recoverable piece of them afterwards. The Speaker of the Lepritan Revolutionary Council, however, had supposedly gone missing within a matter of days after the war began, and only being officially designated as MIA by the Hiklaxians on Thursday, March 14, 1805. With the Speaker of the Lepritan Revolutionary Council classed as MIA, the Hiklaxian Empire has designated the entire Revolutionary Council as terrorists, and anyone who supported them, be it from within or from abroad, as terrorists alike, marking the volunteers that arrived in Leprit from abroad as terrorists and punishable by death instead of a war tribunal by Hiklaxian courts. Death which would be served quickly and without any remorse, as the accused and guilty were viewed as the same for the field of battle. Be it the women or the men of the countryside who housed Lepritan troops, be it the international revolutionaries who flocked to Leprit to avoid further extensions of slavery, be it the anarchists of Leprit who viewed all sides as evil and corrupt, be it even any Hiklaxian expat who returned to Leprit after the continuation of hostilities had occurred, be it leaders of other nations in Aurora, be it anyone who assisted with the battle on the ground in Leprit for the opposing side of the war. Each of these types of individuals were to be classed as terrorists to the Hiklaxian Empire, and the Empire would stop at nothing to bring them to their version of justice. From the onset of the Emperor's desire to start forging more xenophilic bonds with the citizens and slaves of Hiklax, many voices in the nation spoke up against it, but not enough to even form a threat to the Empire, with many local counts and dukes in the countryside only asking if they are allowed to increase the nominal tax rates to be allowed to keep up with the reduction of their own slave auctions. Something which the Emperor agreed to on the sole condition that when taxes fell to a current slave, their master would be the individual who picks up the taxes in their stead. This caused the vast majority of cities such as Thule to begin growing ever more suspicious of the Empire and started flirting with the idea of separatism to join the Woolworthian Empire, starting to gain ever more xenophobic and racist views on the slaves of Hiklax. Starting with the protest of March 14th, named the Righteous March by the protesters. This event caused no serious damage, but did end with several arrests, and the slaves of several of the masters and attendants getting one back on their masters and killing them in protest when things were wrapping up. In the aftermath, the emperor gave their dukes and duchesses an ultimatum, that being to remove all slave auctions that don't come from the current imperial family or direct lineage, meaning the emperor and those of the Jingdo dynasty, who were at most one relative away from the emperor himself in any direction. This, rather predictably, didn't go over well with a majority of non-Jingdo dukes and duchesses of the empire, as they would lose a substantial amount of their income in the blink of an eye. However, a vast majority of the counts within the empire upheld this new legislation brought in by the emperor, to which the dukes and duchesses of the empire had no choice but to comply with the public and private opinions of their supposed lessers. Swallowing their collective pride, the dukes and duchesses of the empire capitulated to the demand, and the slave auctions of the empire were made mostly illegal, marking the first substantial push into moving away from slavery in Hiklax. However, that concludes our current investigation into this segment of Hiklaxian life in the 1800s. There will be more to come when the ice sheet is thawed out and allows for us to dig into the history with a deeper glance. If you wish to see more snippets of the story before they air on the channel, then by all means, come join our Discord, the link's in the description. If you wish to see more of this series in the future, then please do show your support, as every little bit helps. As always, I hope you have all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.